This is why clarity may feel really elusive right now, but why that's not necessarily a problem. Hi, my name is Tiffany Lauren Jones. I'm a cultural futurist specializing in identity evolution, and I track shifts in culture, energy, and human behavior before they become mainstream. So many of you, especially if you're in therapy and you've been on your identity shift journey or you're entering into it, you likely have already gone through some type of healing journey, some type of process with your healing experience. And you may feel like therapy is now becoming really repetitive. You may also feel like spiritual tools are feeling hollow, or more like you're trying to check off your next steps rather than really integrating and embodying who it is that you're becoming. And any type of productivity systems that used to work for you in the past feel exhausting. So you may be doing things that feel like they used to work, but they're not really working anymore. Faith, hustle, or self-work can no longer really self-soothe what it is that's really happening to you. So we're going to talk about why that clarity may feel a little bit elusive to you and why that's not necessarily a problem. So you may be searching for clarity, your next steps in your direction or your purpose, but the harder that you try to think your way forward, the more anxious or blank that you are going to feel. And here's why. You may be over searching, over researching, watching a lot of content, including mine, asking everyone else for answers, really outsourcing your authority, and feeling frozen when you're asking yourself the question of what's next, or you're feeling called to answer that question of what's next. I've gotten quite a few DMs and comments from you all with that very question, saying, hey, I see that you've identified a problem here. I hear what you're saying. I know that this is important, but what's next? And I want to be very clear that all of the content that I'm posting, especially if you've started with me at the beginning of this journey, depending on when you're watching this, is very intentional. And there's an arc that you're being guided through so that your nervous system and your body begins to feel safe to go on this journey with you to create this new identity that you're shifting into. So why are the tools, the resources, the content that you typically used to rely on to help guide you into your next step, to help give you clarity, why are they not working? And it's really because those tools were built to optimize identity, not necessarily meant for you to integrate or embody identity. So I'll talk a little bit about what that means and why it's different now. So we are in an identity reconstruction phase. You've heard me talk about performance identity collapsing, where in the past you could tell yourself who you needed to be and show up as that version of you, even if it wasn't necessarily aligned with who you are. Now you have to go through a process of integrating and embodying who you really are so that your internal authority and your external persona align. Mind, body, and spirit have to all come together. We've been taught to operate out of here and really ignore what's happening here. Now we have to merge all three. So when the foundations of these identities that we used to rely on begin collapsing, the tools that were used to optimize our identities in this paradigm are also collapsing. The foundation of them are collapsing as well. And you can't optimize something that's being dismantled. You have to let it fall apart and then build something new. We're taught that clarity comes from thinking harder, from using our logical mind, but really clarity comes after safety. This is why nervous system safety is something that you'll hear me talk about a lot, and we're hearing a lot more in culture and content, especially as it relates to business, identity, quantum leaping, manifestation, shifting, all of these things. Many of these practices are tools in the big picture of shifting your identity, but no one's really talking about why it's important to have each tool and what the bigger picture is and what's happening to you when you're undergoing an identity shift. So that's what we're doing here. An unsettled nervous system cannot access your intuition. I have so many thoughts and ideas on why this was done to us intentionally, but we won't get into that today. but I really believe that it's cruel societally that we didn't learn how to understand and hear and listen to our bodies. We have an entire system that we live with every day that no one has taught us how to understand. We're only using part of our system, which is typically our logical mind, but there's so much more that goes into how we operate, with emotion being the number one foundational piece to everything that we experience in our reality. So there's nothing inherently wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with the tools that you're using. Keep using them if that feels good to you. But what this is showing you, that you've simply outgrown the tools on that level. You're being called to elevate your evolution, to elevate your own system and how you relate to yourself, and therefore how you show up in the world. So the absence of clarity doesn't necessarily mean that you're disconnected. It just means that your system is asking for you to stabilize before it brings that clarity in. Think of your body like a container. It has to be stable before information can be received into it. If you have a shaky foundation, there's nowhere for that clarity or whatever it is that you're trying to call in to land. So you have to create that safety first. That's why stillness, meditation, sabbaticals, whatever it is, meditation that gets you into a place of stillness, then and only then, when you feel safe being still and not grabbing and chasing and searching and thinking your way through, really feeling, sitting with your feelings, which is hard, especially if you come from a history of trauma or families that didn't really allow or prioritize emotion. I mean, our society as a whole has really kept us from understanding our feelings and the importance of them. So that's a practice that you have to learn now in order to access the safety that can then allow you to access your intuition. So the solution here is to stop cycling through fixes, feeling like you have to fix everything, constantly looking for solutions. There's a time and place for that, but right now it starts with orienting your capacity to receive and again to feel safe, okay? So you have to shift from what will fix me to what can hold me, what is going to make me feel safe, what do I need in my toolkit, whether it's actual resources like a weighted blanket, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a spiritual tool, a practice, a spiritual hygiene, walking, meditation, whatever it is that allows you to feel safe in your body, do that. Also approach your vision and your identity shift in smaller chunks. So instead of trying to solve the problem or the idea of what do I do with my entire life, ask yourself, what makes me feel slightly more grounded today? That's where your clarity is going to begin. Some quick examples of this are walking without listening to a podcast, allowing you to really be present in what it is that you're doing. Eating at regular times, making sure that your body is nourished, that you're hydrated so that your system stays powered and regulated. Reducing your decision load. This is why I think AI can actually really help us rather than hinder us when it's used correctly. We don't want to give up our critical thinking, but we can reduce our decision fatigue and our decision load, especially when we're already constantly being bombarded with decisions daily. Reduce that as much as possible. That's going to free up your capacity to receive clarity and create safety. You don't need a 5-year plan. You need a regulated starting point. So when you do this, you'll find that this is the beginning of your real integration. If this is resonating with you, then this is just a piece of the full identity arc that we're overviewing. And wherever you are in your journey, you're exactly where you're meant to be.